What's up, class? Miss Brown here. Today we're looking at chapter 10, all about the internet and social media. So, to kick off our overview, we have four main points today, but honestly, we only have 15 slides. So, hopefully, this will be one of our shorter lectures for you to watch. We are going to talk about a short history of internet and social media, very brief, like 2 slides. Then, we're going to get into the internet today. We'll hit home on social media. I'll give you some fun facts, and then we'll end with reconceptualizing public life in the digital age, right? And what that looks like. Okay, so I want to apologize for how this is on your PowerPoint. I know it's kind of harder to read. However, it just gives you a really good visual breakdown of the history in a timeline. So 1885 has its own little bracket, and that is when the design for the computer really came about. And then in the 1940s, we had a lot going on, but that's when Colossus and binary code and all those things were developed. But really, I want us to jump down to 1970s because that's when things really started to just launching off. We got, for things that we see today, still, email. We've got internet emerging. So the 70s were really a lot of things going on there. And then the 90s, HTTP developed, all these different things. And then 1999, emojis appeared. And then here you've got where the 2000s were obviously just things just skyrocketed. So 2004, Facebook launched. Facebook is like 21 years old. That's crazy. And then all these different things. 2017, TikTok was born. So just some good history there. We're not going to spend a ton of time on it, but just some really good history. And so, just like we said before, 1880s, that's when the design for the computer happened. In 1943, Colossal was the first electronic digital computer. It reduced information to binary code, and it was invented by Tommy Flowers, which I have a picture of him on here. But this is actually a picture of the very first computer, Colossus. I can't talk today. But as you can see, like, people are standing by this computer. Like, it was ginormous, right? So amazing to see how far things have come today. Okay, so let's talk about the personal computer, right? That's what I'm using right now. The personal computer in 1977, Apple II was released, and it was a low cost, easy to use microcomputer designed specifically for personal use and known for multimedia. So you've got the Colossus in 1943, and then, less than 30 years later, you really have they shrunk it down that much in that 30-year time frame. That's crazy awesome. And then our last bullet point on this slide, IBM contracted with Microsoft to use the Microsoft operating system in its IBM PC. So you were starting to see Microsoft in those computers. All right, so on to our second main point, the internet today. So just some terminology that might help you here. You've got LANs, which is just local area networks. And so an example of that would be like our college library. And then you've got the WANs, which is wide area networks. So these are linked computer systems. And these are things that you probably have heard, but you don't really think about. And then ISPs, which is internet service provider, right? So just kind of some terminology there that you might have heard and you didn't even know what it was when you broke it down. Okay, so this is a quiz question. If I recall correctly, the World Wide Web, WWW, we use it all the time, uses hypertext transfer protocols, HTTP, to transport files from one place to the next. So the WWW is what seriously brings technology to life, right? If we didn't have that, it would, technology would be kind of lifeless. And then hypertext transfer was developed in the early 1990s. Okay, so I want to ask you guys a question. before we move on, what do you think? Which social media platform is used the most today that you think? Which one? So just think for a second. If we were in person, I'd have you like come to the board, write your hypothesis down. Okay. So if you guessed TikTok, you are correct. Okay, this is according to a 2023 study from Average Daily Time with leading social media platforms. Again, 2023. So little bit of gap there, but not much really. So TikTok what came in at 45.8%. YouTube, believe it or not, was number 2. And then you've got Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, and Reddit. Reddit coming in hot. If you're not on Reddit, like Reddit is great for all the reviews. So TikTok and YouTube really up there. Okay, so let's look at social media. These are just some fun facts, okay? So, social networking sites are websites that function as online communities for users, right? We use social media to network, connect with others, all these different things. Did you know that 81% of all Americans belong to at least one social media site and average 2 hours and 6 minutes a day engaging with those apps? So that is, that's our daily life now, right? We're on these social media sites, we're on these apps. So it's important for us to know like these things are going to affect our life and how we feel, how we operate, and how we conduct business in daily life. So again, it says 81% of all Americans, right? So not all Americans, but if you kind of think about history, right? Maybe older generations aren't really using it, but as we move forward in history, like people are gonna start using these things more if they stay around. And so for us to be like mindful of that is and have boundaries is important. All right. Also, worldwide, there are 2.9 billion active monthly Facebook users, 1.9 billion of whom log in daily. So almost everybody's logging into Facebook daily. Everybody loves Facebook. I'm on Facebook. Anyways, and you may not have known this, but Twitter was rebranded as X in 2023. What? I really didn't know that until I read our textbook a couple of years ago. Like I really did not know that they rebranded as X, but I do not have Twitter, so that's probably why. Okay, and then lastly, TikTok is the world's fastest growing and most used social media site. And you probably already knew that, but fun facts there. Okay, so let's stay on social media. Let's look at the debate over social media's value, right? Some people value it, some people say they don't. A lot of my public speaking classes, like for their informative speech, they want to do social media. So there's a lot of hot topic on social media. However, let's look at some terminology here. So we have the dual factor model of social media use, which is social media use being motivated by the need to belong and the need for acceptance. So this model is saying like this is why people want to use social media, right? They feel that they belong on there and they want to be accepted, and so they're looking for that through social media channels. Also, we have the idealized virtual identity hypothesis, which is really cool how this breaks it down, which is social media users tending to show idealized characteristics of themselves. And I feel like we're all kind of guilty of that, right? If you have social media, basically putting your best face on social media, like only you with your makeup on or only your good days, all these things, right? The idealized virtual identity hypothesis. So we've all heard of it. This is putting it in a box, okay? And then the next one is extended real life hypothesis, which predicts that we use social media to communicate our actual identities. Really cool. So just some good terminology there. All right. So let's continue this debate. So some people actually have what are called Finstas. Okay, instead of like regular Instagrams, they've got their original account, but then they also have Finstas, which is their second Instagram account, or AKA their fake Instagram account. which offers less curated, more natural versions of themselves, and only to a trustworthy amount of friends. So apparently, it's a really big thing right now. Like people are doing Finstas, so maybe get you a Finstas. Um, a lot of people are concerned about social media because they say it's like linked to having more depressive states, and so I think that's why this class is so important, and hopefully you feel the same way. But it's helping you like understand that you do have to have those boundaries when you use these platforms, right? And all types of media, not just social media, but so it is important for us to realize that these things do affect our lives. So we have to sometimes put boundaries in place for ourselves. Okay, so let's look at effective forecasting error. Effective forecasting error is discrepancy between the expected and the actual emotions generated by Facebook activity. This could be Facebook envy, subjective well being, and social isolation. So, maybe you're thinking, oh, I get all my social on my phone instead of like going out with your friends to see a movie or, whatever the heck you do these days. So, or going out to eat, right? So things like just staying in instead of actually getting that interpersonal communication. So I think these are really, really things that make us think like, okay, um, do we open up Facebook or Instagram and feel good after we get off of it, or do we feel worse? Right? Monitoring how you feel after you have utilized said platform, right? So, or are you getting on your platform just because you're bored or just because you like want to, to really being like self aware of how these things are affecting our emotions is important. Okay, and then this is our last slide for today. Reconceptualizing public life in the digital age. The internet makes us all journalists, broadcasters, commentators, critics, filmmakers, and advice columnists, right? I'm shooting a video for my class, but I'm putting them on YouTube, so it's public, right? I feel like that's the most beautiful thing, but also like crazy that I can do that. Um, However, it's important with all this information coming from so many different platforms and technology, it's important for us to be critical consumers of information and to also have a healthy dose of skepticism when we're looking at things on social media and all the other things that we've looked at today, magazine or throughout the class, looking at magazines and all these different things. So hopefully, but also it can be a great platform, right? Like social media and internet, like all these things are great platforms if we use our voice wisely. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this lecture. Let me know if you guys have any questions at all. Have a good day.